A hiker vanished in 2017, and everyone thought he simply got lost, until a fisherman's hook snagged something terrifying. What he pulled from the lake wasn't a fish, but a chained sleeping bag. And inside it was the truth authorities had been searching for. But the real question is, who put it there? In the summer of 2017, a seasoned weekend hiker named Marcus Hale vanished without a trace while trekking through the rugged wilderness of Montana's Bitterroot Range. Friends, rangers, and loved ones searched for days, then weeks, and eventually months, yet no clue surfaced. No gear. No footprints. No signs of a struggle. It was as if the mountain simply swallowed him whole. Authorities labeled the disappearance unresolved but suspicious. His family labeled it a living nightmare. And 3 years later, just as hope faded and the case slipped into silence, one single discovery would rip it open again. A fisherman's hook snagging on something heavy beneath the cold, dark surface of Lake Harlow. What surfaced was not a fish. It was a human-sized sleeping bag, tightly wrapped in rusted chains. Inside that bag lay the horrific truth of what really happened the night Marcus disappeared. Truth that exposed betrayal, violence, and a hiker he trusted as a friend. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more deeply researched true crime stories. Your support helps us uncover the truth behind cases long forgotten. Marcus Hale was the kind of man people described as endlessly reliable. 32 years old, working a demanding job at a logistics company in Missoula, he survived the weekday stress by escaping into the mountains every weekend. The Bitterroot Range became his therapy, his peace, and the only place where he said his mind could finally breathe. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't the type to wander unprepared. Marcus took inventory before every hike: extra water, thermal packs, GPS, emergency blankets. His routine was almost military in precision. So when he announced in late August 2017 that he planned a 4-day hike along the remote Ravenwood Ridge, no one questioned it. His friends jokingly called him a weekend warrior, and he embraced the title. Hiking was his identity. The trails were his sanctuary. During the first day of the trip, Marcus crossed paths with another lone hiker, a man named Evan Rourke, a tall, athletic outdoorsman claiming to be backpacking to clear his mind after a rough breakup. They hit it off easily, sharing water and trail stories. By evening, they set up camp together beside a narrow stream. It wouldn't be the last time they camped side by side. In fact, over the next months, the two met often on the same trails, sometimes by coincidence, sometimes by planning, and a friendship formed. Marcus felt oddly grateful for the companionship. Hiking alone had its beauty, but traveling with a partner offered safety and conversation. What Marcus didn't know, what he could never have imagined, was that the mountains he loved were quietly becoming the stage for the darkest betrayal he would ever face. Because Evan wasn't who he claimed to be. And he wasn't looking for healing. He was looking for opportunity. Labor Day weekend of 2017 promised perfect weather. Clear skies, cool mornings, warm afternoons. Marcus sent his usual message to his sister: "If I'm not back by Monday, send a ranger." It was half joke, half precaution, his signature phrase. He packed his gear with careful attention, strapped on his boots, and drove toward the Ravenwood trailhead. As fate would have it, Evan arrived at the same time. "Heading up the ridge?" Evan asked casually. "Yeah." "Just 2 nights," Marcus replied. "Mind if I tag along?" Marcus didn't hesitate. Their prior hikes had gone smoothly. Evan was strong, experienced, and seemed normal enough. So the two set off together, ascending through steep switchbacks bordered by pines that whispered in the wind. But something felt different this time. Evan seemed tense, distracted, his jaw tight, his steps faster than usual. Marcus noticed but brushed it off. Maybe the breakup. Maybe stress. After all, people came to the mountains to clear their minds. By mid-afternoon, they reached an overlook with sweeping views over Lake Harlow. They took photos, shared protein bars, and talked about life goals. Yet the entire time, Evan kept glancing at Marcus's backpack, its weight, its contents, its pristine condition. Later that evening, as they set up camp beside the lake, a strange argument erupted. Accounts would later piece together that it began over something trivial, the placement of the tent, or maybe who should collect firewood. Whatever the reason, it escalated quickly. Marcus, typically calm, tried to diffuse the tension. Evan became defensive, angry, as though something deep within him had been waiting for this moment. The argument faded by dusk. But the damage was done. Marcus believed they would sleep it off. Evan knew he would not let Marcus see another sunrise. The forest at night is never truly silent. Crickets chirp. Leaves rustle. The lake breathes slowly against its shore. But sometime after midnight, a sound echoed through the trees, one that no animal made. A struggle. A gasp. A desperate attempt to flee. Marcus awoke to a sudden, violent blow. Evan had attacked him with a rock, striking him from behind as he crawled out of his tent. Dizzy, confused, and blinded by adrenaline, Marcus stumbled toward the lake. Evan followed, striking again and again. Marcus fought back. Investigators later found broken branches, scattered gear, and torn earth suggesting a fierce fight for survival. But Marcus was wounded, disoriented, and ultimately overpowered. Evan strangled him until his body went limp. His motive? The truth would remain tangled in a web of jealousy, obsession, and psychological instability. Evan had grown increasingly attached to Marcus during their hikes, misinterpreting his friendliness as something deeper. When Marcus failed to reciprocate, Evan spiraled into resentment. Rather than leave evidence behind, Evan dragged Marcus's lifeless body back to camp. In a twisted attempt to conceal the crime, he stuffed Marcus's body into his own sleeping bag, folding him into the tight nylon cocoon. Then came the chains. From his pack, Evan removed a length of heavy chain, something investigators later theorized he'd brought intentionally. He wrapped it around the sleeping bag, securing it with a rusted padlock. The weight alone showed he planned more than a spontaneous attack. Evan dragged the chain sleeping bag to the edge of Lake Harlow. The ground bore deep grooves from the weight. Under the cover of darkness, he pushed it into the water. The lake swallowed it slowly, bubbles rising as the makeshift coffin disappeared beneath the black surface. When morning came, Evan packed up camp, erased footprints where he could, and hiked out alone. He blended into society easily. No one suspected a thing. To the world, Marcus had simply vanished. To Evan, the mountains had given him a perfect burial ground. But Lake Harlow would not keep its secret forever. Marcus never returned home on Monday. His sister called rangers immediately. The search began at sunrise. Helicopters scanned the ridge, drones surveyed the slopes, and teams navigated dense trails on foot. They found Marcus's truck at the trailhead, locked, undisturbed. But there was no sign of Marcus. For weeks, volunteers flooded the area. They combed through ravines, climbed cliffs, and hiked miles of rugged terrain. Search dogs picked up faint traces but lost the scent near the lake. Evan, remarkably, volunteered in the search for 2 days. He hiked alongside Marcus's family, pointing at ridges and suggesting theories with chilling ease. Then, without explanation, he stopped showing up. Winter came early that year. Snow blanketed the mountains, burying all evidence beneath a silent white sheet. The official search ended. Marcus was declared missing. 3 years passed. His family mourned without closure. His sister kept his phone plan active, unable to let go. Every holiday, they left a plate for him at the table. And Lake Harlow continued to keep the truth tightly wrapped at its bottom, waiting for the moment it would finally surface. On a warm afternoon in early June 2020, local fisherman Dale Wilkerson headed to Lake Harlow with nothing but his tackle box, radio, and folding chair. He had fished the lake for 30 years and knew every quiet corner where trout gathered. He cast his line near the northern cove. Minutes later, the rod jerked hard. "Got a big one," Dale muttered, bracing himself. But the pull was strange, heavy, sluggish, unmoving. The line stretched taut as if snagged on something massive. He tugged. Nothing. He pulled harder. Still nothing. Cursing under his breath, Dale attached a small winch mounted on his boat to the line. Slowly, with mechanical groans, the object began to rise, breaking the surface with a sucking sound. But it wasn't a fish. And it wasn't a log. It was a sleeping bag wrapped in chains, dripping lake water, mud, and algae. The sight froze the air around him. Dale's instincts screamed that this was not an accident, not trash, not anything normal. He called the sheriff immediately. Within an hour, Lake Harlow was swarming with deputies, divers, and forensic specialists. They laid the sleeping bag on a tarp, cut the chains, and unzipped it with surgical care. A wave of silence fell over the investigation team. Inside the bag were human remains, later identified through dental records as Marcus Hale. The case long considered unsolvable had just torn itself open. The discovery sparked the largest murder investigation the area had seen in years. Detectives retraced Marcus's final days, re-interviewing everyone who had seen him before his trip. One name kept resurfacing: Evan Rourke. Friends recalled the many hikes Marcus had taken with Evan. Rangers remembered seeing them together weeks before the disappearance. Marcus's sister revealed that Evan had texted Marcus 2 days before the trip asking if he was still hiking that ridge. Detectives visited Evan's home. He appeared nervous, avoiding eye contact, sweating despite the cool weather. When asked about the trip, he claimed they parted ways early on. But his story had holes. When confronted with GPS data from Marcus's phone and inconsistencies in his timeline, Evan panicked. He ended the interview abruptly. Search warrants followed. Investigators found chains identical to those discovered around the sleeping bag in Evan's shed. On his hiking boots, microscopic traces of algae matching Lake Harlow were identified. The evidence tightened like a noose. Finally, faced with overwhelming proof, Evan broke. He confessed, coldly, without remorse, to killing Marcus during an argument and disposing of his body in the lake. But what shocked detectives most was his admission that the attack had not been spontaneous. He had planned it. Evan Rourke was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse. His trial drew national attention. People struggled to understand how a man who seemed so normal, so outdoorsy, so friendly, could harbor such darkness. The prosecution presented the chilling timeline, the confession, and the physical evidence. Chain links, algae samples, GPS matches, and forensic damage consistent with homicide. Marcus's family sat through every moment, grieving the brutal truth they had waited 3 years to learn. Evan's defense argued insanity, claiming emotional instability, abandonment issues, and delusional attachment. But the jury saw through it. After a 2-week trial, Evan was found guilty on all counts. He received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted in quiet cries of relief from Marcus's loved ones. Justice had been served, but the wound remained. A life taken. A future stolen. A brother, a son, a friend, gone forever. Lake Harlow eventually reopened to the public. But fishermen avoided the northern cove, whispering about the sleeping bag that rose from the depths, carrying the truth the mountain had tried to hide. The wilderness Marcus loved so deeply had become his grave. But it was also the place that ultimately revealed his story. The disappearance of Marcus Hale reminds us that evil doesn't always lurk in shadows. Sometimes it walks beside us, shares our meals, laughs at our jokes, and hikes the same trails. Marcus trusted Evan, believing he was a friend, a fellow traveler, a harmless companion. But trust, once misplaced, can become fatal. 3 years passed before nature itself forced the truth to the surface. A random fisherman, a snagged line, and a single moment of persistence unraveled a murder meant to stay buried forever. Marcus's story is a haunting reminder that cases grow cold, but they do not always stay cold. Somewhere, somehow, evidence waits to be found. If you found this story compelling and want to support more true crime investigations like this, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive and ensures that justice, no matter how delayed, continues to find its way to the surface. Thank you for watching, and stay safe out there.